This is the Len Amsterdam radio show, broadcasting from Canada. Mo Cascanet meets with filmmaker Brian Stockton from Michael Chin's studio.
Okay, we're here right now with Brian Stockton. Brian's a filmmaker, and most recently, I guess, have worked on the BLOB thing. It's an animated character, the world's most depressed animated character. Maybe you could fill us in a little more about what you're up to with the BLOB thing. What's he up to?
Sure. Well, the BLOB thing is a character I came up with about 10 years ago, I guess. It's a plasticine animated character, and came up with him almost by accident, like I say, about 10 years ago. I was just looking for an animated film to make, and just sort of threw this film together really, really quickly, and it kind of turned out better than I had expected, and people seem to really like it, and so it's something I've been continuing off and on for the last 10 years.
How did the auditioning process go for your movies?
The BLOB thing?
Yes.
Well, the BLOB thing films are usually made up by whatever's lying around the house at the time. They're very much low budget, kind of thrown together. I myself appear in a couple of the films as myself.
Well, so you sort of had an inside track.
Exactly. I knew the producer. So
yeah, that always helps.
Yeah. So and they've all been done on a very, very low budget. So any time that I do need a voice, like for instance, I'm the voice of the BLOB thing.
Well, you don't need to give us away too much there, but
yeah.
But how do you record your voice there? It doesn't sound like you.
Yeah, the BLOB thing, and he doesn't really speak English. First of all, he just sort of mutters and makes these weird kind of noises that nobody really understands. So I just get a microphone and I start sort of grumbling into the microphone, and then it's played back at double its normal speed, so the pitch goes way up, and it. Oddly enough, you take anything and double the speed, and it ends up sounding like a cartoon character, really. So.
I see. So that's how you get your some of your voices. Just like when you maybe have a hangover or something like that, you do the grumbling. You have more feel for the part.
Exactly.
Does the BLOB thing feel any pain?
That's been a bit of a debate. When you're making a film with a completely created character like that, you tend to have to sort of work out all those little details, and that's probably one of those details that, when it's convenient for the plot, he feels pain, and when it's not so convenient for the plot, he doesn't. But the end result is he tries to commit suicide a couple of different times, and because he's a malleable blob of goo, he can just sort of be cut in half when it's convenient and just sort of stuck back together.
Is he asexual, or does he have a girlfriend?
He is, in my mind, a male character, because I think I find it easier to write from a male perspective. That might sound silly because it's a little blob of goo, but I do think of it as a male character, and have had many discussions with people about the nature of his existence, because there is essentially no explanation for why he is where he is. He seems to be the only blob thing around, and everybody else in the films are all normal humans. So that is something I've oddly thought enough about, and I think part of the reason the films work is because he is the only blob. So I've decided that he would never have a girlfriend, or there would never be any other blob creatures. Because
what about the glad bag in drag?
The glad? Oh yes.
Garbage in, garbage out?
Yeah, there's a short film, Garbage In, Garbage Out, where he there's a garbage strike on, so he ends up with all these bags of garbage around his apartment he can't get rid of, and so in a moment of, I guess, boredom and/or desperation, he decides to try and make a substitute girlfriend, puts a wig on a garbage bag and puts a little face on it, and it works for a while. He does a little waltz with this fake blob thing until he realizes that it's quite a smelly bag of garbage. So that's the punchline to that.
Well, how long does it take to put a movie like that together?
Well, for animation, in animation terms, this is actually quite fast. Like, I can do about a minute's worth a day of this kind of animation, which...
And each film is about, let's say for the BLOB thing, the very first...
Yeah, the first one is 3 minutes long, and that took me about 3 days to shoot.
3 days.
Yeah. Because it is very... it's very fast and dirty animation. It's a lot of it, in fact, there's not much going on except the blob thing, and you know, it's a few seconds shot, and he maybe turns this way and that way, and then blinks his eyes. You know, if this was like a Disney production, that would take like a week to shoot.
Yeah.
But in my sort of limited world of animation, it can go by, the shooting can go by quite quickly because there's long pauses where the blob's not doing very much, and all you have to do is blink his eyes. So you can shoot like a whole 2 seconds of film at a time, or in fact there's nothing going on. So it's fast in animation terms.
Is there a special camera, Brian?
I use a Bolex animation camera. A Bolex, a standard 16 millimeter camera, and they come with an attached animation motor and a little controller box, so you can program in how many frames you're going to shoot, and you can vary the shutter speed. But it's a fairly standard thing for 16 millimeter filmmaking.
So when you shoot something like the blob thing, maybe some people don't know about this, but it's a camera where it takes pictures, you reposition,
Yeah.
take another picture. This is what takes the time. Like this is why it makes it a tedious job. Well, maybe at times tedious.
Definitely, yeah, and I probably don't have as much patience as I should to be an animator, and that's maybe why this is, you know, kind of a sideline in a way. But yeah, so you take one frame of an object, and then you move it a little bit, and you click another frame, and then you move it a little bit, you click another frame, and so on and so forth. And at 24 frames for every second, you know, that's 1,000 frames for every minute, or...
Is that how many you do for your animation, 24 frames for each second?
For each second, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's quite a bit.
And depending on what you're doing, you can sometimes get away with shooting 2 frames at once, and that goes a little bit quicker. And Japanese animation, a lot of that is actually done 3 or 4 frames at a time, as a way to sort of cheat.
Is it in black and white?
Most of the blob thing stuff is in black and white, and it was a bit of an accidental decision to start with, because that's what I happened to have around was a couple of extra rolls of black and white film. And like I said before, this wasn't something I had really planned a lot. It was just a spur of the moment kind of thing. So I had some black and white film, and I think that is one of the reasons that it ended up working so well, because when you're working with a low budget and you don't really have any money for art direction, you know, there was essentially nobody else working with me. When you use black and white, it's almost like a cheap and easy way to have instant art direction, you know, like it's an instant look for it to be in black and white. And I used just a couple of spotlights with very, very, you know, harsh direct light, and very easily it ends up looking like an old film noir black and white movie, without having spent much effort, or without having to spend a lot of money. So that said, when I did the second Blob Thing film, Revenge of the Blob Thing, I wanted to play around with it a bit more, and play around with the film a bit more. So I decided that there was going to be home movies in it, and the home movies, explicably or inexplicably, are in color. So you do get to see the Blob Thing in color, and it's that very, very bright, very dense, very saturated color that you get with old home movies, Kodachrome movies. So that's what I shot it with, was Super 8 Kodachrome. So it you know, looked just like a home movie, and it ended up being a really nice contrast. The Blob Thing's world is black and white, and then it's a nice cut, a nice transition when you see the vivid color of his home movies.
Brian, I'd like to thank you for being on the show,
Sure,
Peppers
no
Web TV, and good luck to your video and your site.
Hi, I'm filmmaker Brian Stockton, and be sure to tune in to Peppers Web TV.